Good morning, everyone. Russ Sperling here, Director of Visual Performing Arts. And it's 8:30, and it's time to get started on our Facing the Future Together pre-service day. I'm going to wait just a minute or two because I assume that some people might have trouble getting on, although we do seem to have 101 people in the room, 104. And we had about 120 something registered, so we're almost there. I won't wait too much longer. We are trying out this different platform than Zoom because occasionally we do want to host events like this where we want to have more of a kind of back-end abilities to make sure that we're stage managing and doing some of the things that we need to be doing it in these times. And this webinar jam gives us a little more flexibility than Zoom does. You'll find that your sessions later today will be on Zoom. And it seems as though Zoom is working, although on the East Coast there were quite a few outages reported. So hopefully that will go smoothly. We had a Zoom call with the VAPA staff earlier today, and it worked fine. So hopefully all that is behind us. So I'm looking at the chat. I'm seeing VC Groves saying we're back. Thomas Alforque saying hello, etc. Feel free to chime in there and say good morning to everybody, etc. And Tyler Johnson, I see, is good morning. Our new music teacher at Madison High School. Welcome, Tyler. I've known Tyler for a lot of years, and really happy that you're with us in the district. By the way, one thing that Webinar Jam doesn't do is allow for a virtual background. So I am here in the bedroom that I've been using with my green screen behind me that for the Zoom backdrop, but not working here. So that's why I have sort of this rudimentary thing. Otherwise, it'd be a blank wall. So I guess it's no big difference. So here we are. Yes. No. Ethan. Who's? I'll I don't know if you're clicking on that or okay. Here we go. So here I am. Welcome. We'll get started now. And I was going to say it's wonderful to see you all. Although I'm not seeing you, I am seeing you in the chat. So good morning. Welcome to what will be of course, a very memorable school year. We all wish that we were, going back to see our students and to be with them and to do the work that we do well. We do so well that when we're with kids, but we're going to make it work. And I immediately want to thank the VAPA department team for the work that they have done. They came back early. Because there's so much to do, not only around this conference, but around professional development that's going to be coming next week, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And also the opportunities for students as we have the first week of school. And most of the time, we will all be in professional development, but the students are all going to have access to all 4 disciplines in the arts and to be able to work in those preschool, all the way through 12th grade. There will be that access for kids to have instruction in the arts. So Marty, Marjorie, Laura, Candace, and Tim, Ethan, and of course, Jolene, thank you so much for everything that you've done. You've worked so hard. I know all of us worked over the weekend to be ready, not only for today, but for this coming week and the week after. So really want to thank you. I want to take us back to April 7th, 2020. This was a meeting that we had where we invited some of you who we had heard were doing interesting things with online learning already in April, but look at our faces. I feel like we don't feel like that anymore. That was such an uncertain time. And you can see it in our faces and the concern and just not knowing. Now we have a better idea of we all know how to social distance. we have a much better idea of what online learning looks like, although there's still a lot we need to learn, and there's a lot of kids we still need to make sure that we're providing access to, etc. But I think times have changed. I think we have come a long ways. So let me talk to just to connect a little bit with you about my summer. So you'll see some pictures here. You can see a picture of my 16-year-old kitty Frida, who occasionally will decide that the best place for her to take a nap is right where my workstation is, because there's a skylight there and there's a nice piece of sun that comes down. So I kind of work around her. You can see my husband and I, we took a trip to Arizona. We took a day trip to Sedona just to get out of the house. We socially distanced while we were there. It was nice just to go somewhere different and socially distance somewhere else. And look at that puzzle. That's the second 1,000-piece puzzle that we have done in the summer. We just completed our third one last night, and that's a new thing. Puzzles are fun. I know a lot of you are doing them also. Also have had the chance to really do a lot of cooking. I have rediscovered an incredible love for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at lunchtime. They've just been great. I've attended virtual church, virtual yoga, virtual happy hours, virtual galas, virtual pride, and of course, last week, the virtual DNC, which I found very inspiring. You probably have done a lot of attendance of virtual things. I have been moved by the events that have happened in our nation. I'll talk more about that as we go through here. And I want to share that I learned about Canvas. So some of you know that I teach adjunct at Grossmont College, and I teach the band class there. It's an ensemble. Have never had a reason to for me in my teaching there to put any of it online. It's an ensemble class. If you want to learn music history, you take a music history class. If you want to learn theory, you take a theory class. The ensemble is the ensemble. And I have a lot of community members as well as other students. So they decided before our district even did that everything was going to be online, and that if I was going to keep my class, that I was going to have to take a course on Canvas, which was provided for us on Canvas. And I will share with you that I started out in this very chair, coated in a thin layer of sweat as I started, and not knowing what was going to be in front of me. I find myself, I'm pretty technologically proficient, but to get into this whole new thing, I was very anxious about that. And so I'm imagining that many of you may have a similar experience to share about Google Classroom or all the things that we've all had to learn so quickly. But want you to know that I'm there with you. I have been through that, and happily have loaded my class on Canvas. We had our first class meeting last Monday. I don't have a big class, but I'm very excited about it, and it's been quite a learning experience, and it has changed my instruction, which I'm sure it's what we're doing is changing your instruction. And when we go back, which we will go back someday, it's going to change things. We have a different view of things. Students have a different view of things, and what we're able to do online is really quite amazing. So I'm going to transition now and thank Terry Ong. Terry has been in the district for many years, is a theater educator at Mann Middle School, but I want to thank her because she served many, many hours this summer as on the negotiation team for SDEA. And what I want to say is that she provided a wonderful voice for you all. In the agreement that has now been approved, VAPA is called out as part of the contents for elementary instruction. And that is a really important thing because sometimes if it's not called out, it can feel optional for people, but it is not optional. It is in the contract. Also, she helped make sure that there was job-alike PD for you all in the upcoming weeks. I know that at least by tomorrow, you will receive an email, maybe through your principal, explaining to you what the next 2 weeks look like for you. The contract starts Wednesday. You have 2 different sessions that you can access on Wednesday through Friday, and then you'll have 3 spots during the day. They're 90-minute sessions, and you are gonna, so there's actually 21 opportunities to take things, but you just need to take 10. Your principal will tell you more about that. There's 8 different strands, and you want to take 1 in each of the strands, plus a couple others. But because of Terry's advocacy, you will be taking a quality online learning session in your discipline versus taking it with everybody else in the district. And so our resource teachers and our managers will be leading you through that, and it's going to be relevant to you. And I know, I was in the classroom 14 years. I know how many professional developments I went to where I had to figure out how it applied to me. You have got the opportunity, because of Terry, to take that directly through us in VAPA. And there are other things on social emotional learning, on standards-based grading, also offered with VAPA. We're offering all elementary teachers how to teach VAPA online, if you're an elementary class, regular classroom teacher. So we are offering a lot of stuff in the next couple weeks. I have to say, it's unprecedented to have this much professional development opportunity as a teacher, and I am just I'm thrilled that we have that opportunity to connect with you on a level that it's just never happened this way. Just the time has never been available. So take advantage of it. There's those of us that are on VAPA staff, we had to go through a facilitator training, one of the best professional developments that I've ever been through. And it was online, led by district staff, and they did a phenomenal job. But there's really been some amazing work that has gone on this summer. So anyway, it's going to be, I think, very valuable for everyone. All right. So and here it is. I'm talking about it. I got there before changing the slide. So I just talked about the quality online learning. Because we like acronyms, there is the QOL. And then I already talked about how we're offering other, not only just for classroom teachers, but for PK, TK, elementary classroom teachers as well. So it's amazing. By the way, this is a professional development conference for 6,500 people, and it was put together basically in a month, and it's all online. Amazing that this is happening. Just really amazing. All right, so I'm gonna switch here, and we're gonna watch a little video to set me up here.
I'm telling y'all already.
But just like life. All right.
Air Jordan ready to take off.
Can I get an amen? And welcome to the very first National Oprah Winfrey Show!
So what strikes me as I see that is the disconnect we have in our schools, specifically in teaching the arts to students of color. Given that Black culture is so rich in the arts, a culture that has given our country so much, and our system is not necessarily giving it back to our students. Now, with great respect to our VAPA teachers that teach in our most underserved schools and do incredible work, we all know that there are discrepancies between what our schools offer around the district. And it's not acceptable. And now is the time for us all to do something about that. This is not something that will necessarily be easy, and it's something that, frankly, of course, we have tried to do over time. But I think our tone and our sense of urgency has to change. Because it's clear, Black Lives Matter, we can all say that. Black Lives Matter, and trans lives matter, and Black trans lives matter. So I will lead on this issue, but my background limits me. I need to rely on authentic voices so I can learn as well. Therefore, for tomorrow's keynotes, we have invited Lamont Jackson, who is one of our area superintendents in the district and who I have become friends with over time, who has a real understanding, I think, of arts education in our schools, and especially as it relates to our Black and brown students. And our other guest keynote will be by Connie McCoy, who is a national voice for culturally responsive pedagogy and music, a professor at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and co-author of Culturally Responsive Teaching and Music Education from Understanding to Application. While her background is in music education, she'll be addressing arts in general as to make sure that it relates to all of you here. So we must rectify the systemic disconnect between the arts and culture of our children and their access to arts education and the culture in our schools. We have to do that. Every year we do a gap analysis. Many of you have seen it, whether you're on the VAPA Advisory Council or it's been shared with you in your discipline meetings. And we know where the arts are and where they're not. And we're going to work hard to address that. Our department is going to engage in, as in the VAPA staff, is going to engage in a book study with Bettina Love. Many of you may know her. All of the principals and administrators in the district got to hear from her last week. Such a powerful, amazing woman, speaker. We're going to be engaging in a book study to learn more about what it is we need to do. So that is my statement on that. And there will be many sessions available to you next week for you to learn more. And we will be weaving that thread as an important priority into our future work. I want to update you on some VAPA news. This summer, the State Board of Education approved the new California Arts Education Framework. So we all know that the new standards were approved last year. And this is the second round of that. And the framework, it's about a 1,200-page document. No one person needs to read it all because there's information in there by discipline and by grade level and different aspects of arts education. But it is a very wonderful guiding document that will be useful for all of us in our profession, that we'll be unpacking with all of you as we move through the year. Believe it or not, we are entering year 5 of our strategic plan in the district for arts education. And that means that, by the way, this means that this is going to be year 6 for me in this position. The first year was the planning year for that plan that I was here, and then the following 5 years, this being the 5th, is my 6th year in the district. So what that means is that this year will be a planning year for the following strategic plan, which will be that would cover the years 2021 to 2026. So we are working on a blue paper, what we're calling a blue paper, to do some research on what the possibilities could be in a strategic plan. Whereas the first strategic plan, I'm going to overly generalize and say was more or less inward looking, as in what do we need to do as a district. The next strategic plan, we're going to start looking out more. Well, who are our community partners? What is going on in the creative economy? What are the careers available to our students, both in nonprofit and for-profit world? Given that the arts has such a footprint, the creative economy has such a big footprint in California. Are we doing what we need to be doing to prepare students for that world, even if they aren't in the arts? What can we be doing? So we're very excited about going through this process. I want to mention that a slide deck on the visual performing arts has been presented, made available to all counselors, and it says access here. Depending on how much time I have left, I don't know if I will. I might go through some of it to just show you what's there. I will be providing this slide deck to you that you can access on Google Slides, and you can click onto these links. You will be interested to see that council presentation. Many of you maybe have seen it before, but I want to make sure that you were aware of it. The VAPA Foundation is happy to learn that UC San Diego has provided our third $100,000 sponsorship, and we're thrilled to get that. It means that we will be able to operate at the full level that we have been operating at again this coming year. We also received a $50,000 grant from Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, a neighborhood reinvestment grant. All of that will go towards the purchase of new musical instruments. So we're thrilled by that. We have a new executive administrator who just joined the VAPA Foundation last week. It's a part-time position paid for by the foundation. His name's Michael Camacho. He is he's an immigrant actually, but he got to San Diego about the time for high school, and he went to Mar Vista High School in the Sweetwater District. So he is fairly local, and he is a graduate of the graduate program in nonprofit management at USD, University of San Diego. So brings to us some great experience, and we're looking forward to his contributions. The VAPA Foundation is currently engaged in an art supplies campaign, knowing that students who are going to be at home do not necessarily have access to art supplies. By the way, the VAPA department did make a very large purchase to make sure that every secondary art student has a small art kit, including a sketch pad, pencil, pen, eraser. Not a lot, but something to get all of them started. I know that Marty, our visual art resource teacher, has been in contact with youth secondary art teachers about that. But we want to raise money for through the VAPA Foundation, more money to increase our access to more art supplies as well. So that has gone out online, and there's a letter that's going into our donors' mailboxes this week. There will also be a moment where we do a drop-off, that families can drop art supplies off. We're only going to take new supplies, just like Toys R Us only takes new toys. We're only going to take new art supplies. That will be in early October, and we intend to make that a media event to get some attention, but also, of course, to have more art supplies dropped off. And we'll be collecting those in a safe way in October. More information will follow on that. So a lot of you are familiar with the VAPA Enhancement Program, or VEP. That is our VAPA Foundation grant program where you can submit an application. Many of you have received grants for all kinds of different things, whether it's equipment, professional development, artistic experiences for students. It's a great opportunity for you to enhance what your students are getting in your classroom. Normally those applications would be out today. Usually that was our goal. We have been swamped and totally busy, just haven't gotten to that. But we'll get that out to you soon. The applications will be due probably about the second week of October. So a little note on conference logistics. For this conference, the pre-service that you're involved in right at this moment, you should have received, and I imagine that if you're here right now, you did receive this email from Candace Narlock. That's the person you should search. So we're on this platform now, Webinar Jam, because of the ability to do some things that Zoom doesn't really have. It looks a little different and has a little better feel, we think, for doing large presentations. But you'll be getting into Zoom rooms as you do the breakouts. So you can see the schedule. It's very tiny, I know, but on your email, you'll be able to see that more clearly. And also, the schedule is linked and with descriptions. There's a website for that. That also came out in an email earlier as well, to see what the sessions are about. But you can see that session 1 starts in about 35 minutes, and there's several choices each round. You'll notice that after session 2, there are lightning rounds. Everyone will come back for that, and that will be back here on this Webinar Jam platform. We have 4 different teachers, 1 from each art discipline, that will be presenting on one of the artistic processes. And they have a 4-minute presentation with 2 minutes for questions. It is a lightning round, really fast. And that's how we'll be doing that. And then we have session 3. And then after we get through session 3, we'll have a teacher's lounge, which will be just one big Zoom room for you to come into. And we might do breakout rooms depending on how many people are there. It's totally optional. Bring your lunch. We'll be there. We can chit chat. We'll also be doing this tomorrow, but we'll make a decision after today's lounge to see if we want to set it up differently. So we might do something different tomorrow, depending on how it goes today. All right, so if you would please, for accountability purposes, we do need to take roll because we are paying you for being here. If you would please type your name into the chat so we can account for your attendance and do that this morning. And so then in the last session, session 3, you will be asked to type your name into that chat as well. And so then Jolene will have the task of comparing, were you there in the morning, were you there in the afternoon? Did you register, and then she will create your time card, and then she will send that to you. You will sign it, and then however you're dealing with time cards at your site, probably scanning it and sending it to your timekeeper, and then it has to go to your site timekeeper because they're the ones that actually submit for you to get paid. That's not something we can handle on our end. You have to turn in a time card. So if you haven't already, please make sure you're putting your name in the chat. And so I have just a few minutes left. I know that Cindy is here in the webinar jam, so we'll let her get started in a second. This we will make available to you through the link in the slide deck, but just so you can get an idea, I'm going to go through this very quickly. Like, read the red part. You're not going to. I'm just going to kind of show you what's here. So kudos to Laura Williams, our resource teacher, who primarily put this together with input. But there is a lot of great information here that will help counselors with scheduling and all the things that they do for us. They're very important in making sure that students do get into your classes correctly. I know that things are obviously different and crazy right now. So we'll see how that all goes, but this information is here. There's been a little bit of formatting weirdness here because of the transference for this particular platform. But anyway, there's a lot of great information here that you should know that your counselors have had access to, and if they haven't seen it before, you can use this with them. All right. So I am going to now, I see that she's here, introduce, hopefully there she is, good. I'm going to introduce, oh my gosh, a fighter for public education nationally. I know that she has been working on not only students of our own district, but really the students on behalf of our nation in advocating for the funding that we need to open schools nationally, fighting for that funding in the Senate that needs to happen. But so she's been a wonderful voice, and you know, with her and Austin Bruner from LAUSD, they have really done some amazing things to coordinate the education response to COVID. But we also know that Cindy understands what arts education can do for students and how important it is, especially at times like this. So Cindy, thank you for joining us this morning. We're excited to hear from you. Take it away.
Thank you. Russ, how's my sound?
It's great.
Okay, great. Morning, everybody. I'm still learning still getting used to this ability to talk to people and not get any feedback. And I figure this must be how TV broadcasters have to work. They just talk to the camera and millions of people are watching. Well, it's not millions, but it's my favorite people in the whole district. All of you are visual and performing arts teachers, and what you do for our students, you know what a huge supporter I am. So it's good to be together this morning. And I'm going to just start by saying, how are you doing? How are you? Are you well? And how do you know if you're well? Because I think this idea of wellness has been something that's been so important to me for a long time. And you've all heard me talk about wellness. And last year when we had the welcome back over, it just seems like it was just yesterday. And it seems like it was 15 years ago that we were at CPMA and welcoming you back. And so this definition of how are you taking good care of yourself? How are you creating balance in your life when the entire world is out of balance right now? So I'll always check in and say, how are you doing? Are you well? What practices work for you? Are there new practices that you needed to start? Are there some practices that you've needed to push aside because those don't work anymore? So checking in is really important, and I hope that you're doing that. I hope you're checking in with each other, that you have, if you're alone during this pandemic, which I am, that you have people that you can check in on, or if you're in a house full of people and you are craving some alone time, that you're figuring out how to do that. But everybody's own definition of how they're doing and if they're well is different for different circumstances. So I'm dedicating this year's back to school and welcoming remarks that I'm making in different Zoom rooms and venues, I'm dedicating to my husband, Sergio. You guys have heard me talk about him before. I lost him 4 years ago this week, and after being together for 33 years, we met when I was 17, and we had just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary right before he passed away in August of 2016. And the reason I'm dedicating this year is welcome back to him, because I know it's been 4 years, and you move on and you change and things are different, but I'm really holding him in my heart, and I'm really holding him right now this week, because when he passed away, we had just spent the week in the end of July watching the Democratic National Convention from his hospital room. We didn't know he wasn't there to die. He was there to recover from some things that had happened. He had complications from a stroke that had happened 10 years earlier. And so it wasn't like he was in hospice, but we had watched it and he was ready to vote. He was so excited to cast his vote in the election that was going to be in November. And without being political, because I'm not supposed to have a political opinion on things, my personal opinions, but I'll tell you what my husband was ready to do. He was ready to cast his vote for Hillary Clinton, and he was 100% sure that she was going to be our next president. And he unfortunately never got to cast that vote. He had it ready to go, and unfortunately he passed away in August and didn't get to do that. And so when I think about what last week meant to our country, it's the 100 years since the suffragette movement started and the women's right to vote. And when I think about equity and what we do as a public school system and what you all do as leaders in the arts to connect to people so that their voices are heard, so that their internal longings and desires and hopes and dreams sometimes find their way into political speeches, but they also just find their way into our humanity as teachers. And that's what you all do as teachers in the visual and performing arts, is you teach the humanity. And so many of the speeches that we're hearing this week and last week are about the humanity, the soul of our country. And I just think, just listen to the arts teachers, listen to what our arts teachers know how to do. And we know how to do this work. You all know how to do this work. You all know how to have public education come from its highest and best self as we meet the biggest adaptive challenge in the history of public education. I know, at least in my career, what we're seeing is the biggest challenge that public education has ever faced. And how do we stay true to our core values? How do we stay true to what we know is most important and not let this pandemic change us at our core? We have to change clearly how we're doing things. Look at what we're doing right now. This is a major difference in how we're opening the year. We're changing how we're doing things, but we don't change our core beliefs. We don't change what's underneath all that. And so go back to dedicating this to Sergio and to my husband. Like I said, we were together since I was 17. And when you get married at a young age, you make a vow. And the vow is in sickness. That vow that we made was in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, till death do us part. And that was my marriage vow. But I very much think of our work in public education as a vow. I think of it as a promise that we make to our children and to society, that education is the great equalizer. It is the foundation of our democracy. And one of my favorite authors is a woman named Margaret Wheatley, and she writes about how we go through change and transition and what happens and who do we choose to be during major patterns of collapse, which is what we're seeing right now nationally, internationally, is a pattern of collapse. And it's a natural pattern. It's a pattern that you see in the living and dying of any living system as it grows and then collapses. But we're in this pattern of collapse. And one of the things she talks about is people used to ask the question, are you the kind of person who sees the glass half empty or half full? And if you reflect on that, what are you? Are you a half empty, half full kind of person? And she said, that's the wrong question now. The right question that we all need to be asking each other is, who needs water and how do I get it to them? And when I think about what we have to do during a pandemic is understanding we've always defined equity in San Diego Unified as making sure each and every student gets what he or she needs when they need it in the way that they need it. Well, my goodness, what our children need now in a format of learning that is so different and so much more challenging to connect is they need us and to show up in different ways. So I think our vow has never been more sacred. Our commitment to our children has never been more important. Our nation understands and is built on this idea of a free, high-quality public education system, and you all are doing that work. When Russ told me, the beautiful work that your whole department did, I have to say thank you to the VAPA resource teachers, and Russ, you and your whole team just stepped up from minute one, and you just have not stepped back. And you're like, roll up the sleeves and let's figure this out. And you worked last week to get these things ready for this week, but you've been like that. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to who we are as a system and that we haven't turned our back on our responsibility to children. And so as we move forward, we are facing a way to figure out how to safely reopen our schools. You've probably seen the report that I had done with UCSD, working with Chancellor Pradeep Khosla on the health conditions and the kinds of things that are necessary for a safe reopening. The analogy I've been using is crossing a very fast moving river. And as we cross this river to get to the other side, if we make one misstep, we just get swept away in the current. And there's a big current that's going by at this point. And we want to take each step careful and measured so that every step forward is truly a step forward and not a step backward. So we're going to continue our plans for that and plan for the very best, strongest opening that we possibly can do. One of the things that Russ gave me a quote at the very beginning of this pandemic, that's one of my favorite quotes I have sitting here on my desk, that says, science will get us out of this, but the arts will get us through this. And it's a quote from Mo Willems, and I really appreciate that quote. And I've been promoting the VAPA department since the very beginning in the spring when we started with online learning, that some of the resources that VAPA put up right away gave families some things to do and to try, and that a lot of districts were just trying to figure out how do we just get basic teaching done. And for us, arts are central. They've always been central to who we are as a district, and that does not change during a pandemic. In fact, the arts become more critical. So Terry, thank you for all the work you did at the bargaining table, of course, keeping it front and center when we did the bargaining with SDEA. You know where my heart is on the arts and the supporting of the arts and all of the local arts organizations that need our help right now as well. How do we, as one big giant community, make sure that arts education is front and center to what we do because our children need us. I would say now more than ever. Russ mentioned Bettina Love, who was a speaker that we had open up our Principals Institute this week. I'm going to tie it to when we think about opening and how to have online learning be the best it can be, knowing that it's not ideal, but we're going to make the best of it. But we also have to have this reckoning that our nation is having around race, and this race reckoning around how to become an abolitionist teacher, how to become an anti-racist district. And as far as we've come, which when you're looking at all of the schools in the state of California, Stanford published a report 2 years ago saying San Diego Unified was beating the odds for African American and Latinx students, that our results were better than would be expected given the demography. We've been receiving accolades and recognition for beating the odds for our students who are most in need of additional support. But that's not enough. There's so much more that needs to be done. And so that's how we brought Bettina Love in. And I'm so glad that you're going to have Dr. Jackson, our area superintendent, speak tomorrow with another speaker. But I'll just give you some ideas about where my head is as we have these dual pandemics, the health pandemic and the race pandemic that some people are talking about. How do we reckon this and how do we make our steps forward? And what Bettina talks about is getting to the root of what caused all this. This isn't about changing a policy. And she talks about reforms being cheap. We can talk about school reform and we can come up with new policies and discipline policies and things like that. Those are important. But what made it happen in the first place? What made the prison system be what it is? What made the institutionalized racism that exists in public schools across the system? What made that all happen in the first place? And are we leading systems that are transforming at the root causes? And the way we do that, the path forward, is to teach the humanity. Do our children lead and know who they are? And do they because we see them and recognize their strengths, talents, and abilities? And are we willing as educators to confront whatever implicit, explicit bias we may have? Are we willing to interrupt that? Bettina Love challenged us and said, are you willing to give up your own privilege? Because the path forward for a radical idea is to not just reimagine and put Band-Aids on it. The path forward is to get to the roots that will eliminate the oppression. And so that's a national reckoning. And what does that mean for us here? You know, she talks about the kinds of policies that have created this, but how do we change that? At the end of the day, we're all dreamers and we're all wanting something better, but dreamers are about action. And we can't undo racism tomorrow. It's not going to happen in one PD session. It's not going to happen because you listen to the superintendent just say a few things one morning and then a few more people tomorrow. It's ongoing work where we look at how do we make our steps forward. And her book, Bettina Love's book, is about abolitionist teaching. And she says, you know, white folks are not just fragile. She says white folks are strong, and they're strong enough to create a system that oppresses people. And she tells us you're strong enough to tear it down. At the end of the day, if the teachers aren't well and the students aren't well, she said that the bottom line is, and this is what resonated most with who I believe we are as a district, is that we do this work out of love. This isn't coming from shaming and blaming and hating and pointing fingers. It's coming from a place of love, a love for self, a love for the children that we serve, a love for the community, and a love for our nation. And so that's where we act from our best and highest selves. When we make our best decisions and we act from our best and highest selves, it's coming from a place of love. And talking to the VAPA teachers is just easy because I know that's where your hearts are. And Theodore Roosevelt had a quote that I really love. He says, do what you can with what you have, where you are. And you just start with where you are. And I know that you all are teaching and leading with grace, with conviction, and with heart. And for that, I truly honor you because you have made a difference. People pay attention to the work in San Diego Unified, that we're a positive outlier district, and that we have this idea of infusing joy, and the work that happens is something that is all of us together as one big family, and you guys are the glue that brings that all together. So I just love this opportunity to talk to you. And I want to I can't really show a slideshow, which I'll tell Russ to remind me for future presentations. I'm really grateful last year for this opportunity when I got to speak to this group. I got to meet Tom, who's a photography teacher at Patrick Henry High School, and he gave me the opportunity to come to his classroom and share my photography. And I've shared with you how when my husband had a stroke and our lives changed on a dime, he became permanently disabled, and our son was only 13, and I was becoming a principal of an inner city school. So much was changing and seeming impossible that I turned to art. I turned to photography to help me find something every single day that I thought was beautiful. So I did a photo a day for 365 days, and I had the opportunity to share that with the photography students at Patrick Henry High School. And that opportunity for me to go through, I started that practice 10 years ago now, so I have 10 years worth of photos. I was only planning to do it for 365 days, and I've just never quit. And my daily practice has become even more important now because I still do it every day. I'm like in this little apartment doing my Zooms every day, but I find a way to get a picture a day. I go on my walk. I'm trying to get, my goal was 10,000 steps a day. I'm now averaging 15,000 steps a day. I try to manage my meetings, the ones that are on camera versus the ones that can be just on the phone. And so the photography has been a really big part of that. And I appreciated getting to know Tom, getting to know his class, and getting to know the work that he does, but the work that's alive in our district. And it's inspired me to continue with my photography practice. And I'd like to eventually turn it into some kind of book or some type of inspiration, but that's for the future. So I'm going to end with a poem by Maya Angelou, who's one of my favorite poets. And it's a poem that I've known for a long time, but you know how poems like come into your life at a time and they're perfect, and then you forget about them, and then they show back up again, and you're like, oh, that's the one I needed to hear today. So maybe this one will mean something to each of you. It's called Continue by Maya Angelou. Into a world which needed you, my wish for you is that you continue. Continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart. Continue in a society dark with cruelty to let the people hear the grandeur of God and the peals of your laughter. Continue to let your eloquence elevate the people to heights they had only imagined. Continue to remind the people that each is as good as the other, and that no one is beneath nor above you. Continue to remember your own young years and look with favor upon the lost and the least and the lonely. Continue to put the mantle of your protection around the bodies of the young and defenseless. Continue to take the hand of the despised and diseased and walk proudly with them in the high street. Some might see you and be encouraged to do likewise. Continue to plant a public kiss of concern on the cheek of the sick and the aged and infirm, and count that as a natural action to be expected. Continue to let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Continue to ignore no vision which comes to enlarge your range and increase your spirit. Continue to dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing. Continue to float happily in the sea of infinite substance, which set aside riches for you before you had a name. Continue, and by doing so, you and your work will be able to continue eternally. Maya Angelou. Thanks for letting me have a few minutes with you this morning. I don't know if I can hear you, Russ.
That's right. I have to turn on the microphone. I'll start over. Wanted to thank you for coming and joining us, and want to thank you for your work on behalf of all of our students and all of the staff and everyone that it takes to make sure that we're providing a world-class education for all of our students in San Diego. So thank you again for joining us, and everybody, thanks for being here today. We've got about a 10-minute break before your first session starts, so make sure you're taking a look at the email from Candace to find out which link you need to click on. All right, with that, we will close this out, and we'll see you all back here in Webinar Jam for the lightning rounds after a couple of sessions.